Maureen O'Sullivan.
Cormagat Lascan Corla. These extremely Kainsai's Cumperoid Yenig may go and Disfork the Noctagus Vartic may are Cumperoid le Prisoon. And when we think about prisons, people go in and there's an attitude towards prison that it's purely incarceration to punish, or is it there as a rehabilitative process? But we have the picture of the person who leaves prison, him or her, and they come out in their crumpled suit or their worn tracksuit and carrying their possessions in either a battered suitcase or a plastic bag. And in many cases they're facing homelessness and unemployment. But then there are those who leave prison with a plan, with a programme for their recovery and for their re-entry into society, where they will want to resume and play a role in that society. And of course I have to ask the question, well, which is applicable to us as we come out of this prison of the bailout? And in many cases it was a prison. And depending on one's point of view, those jailers, the Troika, were either benevolent or malevolent. Leaving jail, of course, is positive. And certainly leaving the bailout is a positive, and is positive and has to be acknowledged, even though many of us would think we shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place. And it's rather ironic that those who have brought the country into this situation certainly have not been punished in any way whatsoever. Now, certain economists will tell us that the government has had a steadying hand on the country during the bailout programme, that they took the tough decisions. And I have no problem with tough decisions, provided they're fair and that they're equitable. But they certainly weren't equitable, and they were tougher on certain sections of society. And it was very hard then to take the comments today from the European Commission's top official who was working on Ireland's bailout, saying that the better off sections in society had paid a heavier price, because that's not borne out in reality, and it's certainly not borne out in the real world where I live. The wealthy have more ability, they have more capacity, they have more means to absorb austerity. So their experience of austerity is very far removed from the reality of the austerity experience of those with middle incomes, those on low incomes, those whose sole income is a social welfare payment, and those with disabilities. And I'm really appalled by that image, that very graphic image from the weekend, of the wife of a discharged bankrupt developer awarded €9,000 a month, which is considered appropriate by a judge for monthly expenses. And of course that's at the taxpayer's expense, when we have people who are lucky to have €90 disposable income at the end of a fortnight or a week, and we are expecting our unemployed young people to live on €100 a week. The Troika's loans facilitated repayment of debt to banks and bond holders who had lent and borrowed unwisely, and the conclusion that has to be drawn is that the wealth of the rich is protected at all costs. And it was very handy to have the Troika to put the blame on for the tough decisions, but at meetings with the Troika they were very clear that these were the government decisions. We've had the metaphor of turning the corner, but what are we turning into? And there's a danger of it being a cul-de-sac, especially when we look at the reality of the exit, because everything hinges on the economy growing by 2.4%, but the extent of the debt is crippling. And next week, and I do want to pay tribute to the Ballyhay Says No group, the technical group will be introducing a private member's motion calling on the government to lobby the ECB so that the central bank will destroy the $25 billion in sovereign bonds issued in lieu of the remaining promissory notes, and to also lobby that the interest payments on the bonds would end and all related debt be cancelled. And what a difference that would make. We could just imagine what situation the country was in, because I think the point is that we have more debt that we can realistically, never mind morally or ethically, be expected to repay. In Dublin Central, in the Docklands, we have a massive reminder of the worst excesses in terms of banking and development, and that is the Anglo-Irish, the carcass of the Anglo-Irish building. There have been lots of suggestions for it. Some say that it should be kept as a museum, as a constant reminder of those excesses. There are other suggestions that it should be ploughed up for an urban farm that could produce quality food for constituents in the area, or that it could provide the site for the long-awaited primary school for the Sheriff Street North Wall area. Now, people talk about positive signs, but what I see coming out are a rise in property prices, a rise in rents, an increase in homelessness and in charges, and our health service that is in a crisis. There's no doubt about that. And it's rather ironic that yesterday was the centenary of the founding of the Irish Citizen Army, who were set up to look after the interests of working class people. You're saying that it's all over, all our woes are over. I would love to believe that, and I hope that that is correct, but I don't think that's borne out in the reality. And you just see the Millward Brown opinion poll last week, which is indicating that 7 out of 10 people think that there's going to be more tough budgets. I hope they're wrong. I hope the 3 out of 10 who think that we are in a better place and going into a better place will be the reality.
And I now call